Hello and welcome to Cinema Craptaculus, where we say a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one, just a lot easier to make fun of. This is Dave, and with me are my uncrappy co-hosts,
Stephanie.
And John.
They say that everything is bigger in Texas, and it looks like that applies to plot holes too. The chainsaw-wielding, face-wearing, mass-murdering Leatherface is back, and Netflix's bloody reboot, remake, resequel, redo, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Here's the rapid recap to catch you up.
Rapid Recap!
The newest addition to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise takes place nearly 50 years after the events of the very first movie. Dante, Jacob Latimore, and Melody, Sarah Yarkin, are Gen Z chefs who've purchased the ghost town of Harlow, Texas, to start a community of like-minded influencers and entrepreneurs. With Melody's teenage sister, played by Elsie Fisher, and Dante's fiance, played by Nell Hudson, along for the ride, it's not long before they're fighting for their lives against a deadly and seemingly ageless Leatherface, played by Mark Burnham. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre! I just added
Wow. I gotta ask something real quick. The movie starts with a kind of unsolved mysteries recap of what happened in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 78.
Narrated by
74.
John Larroquette, who narrated the
right.
original. John
That's
Larroquette
right.
from Nightclub. Millennials, that was a
You
show
mean
from the
Night
Nightclub. That was the X-rated version.
Nightclub, you don't talk
I'm
about
just
Nightclub.
correcting you guys today. Like, what? You guys are not right with your details. What's going on here?
Well, we're not like Leatherface. We're seemingly ageless. But essentially, this Unsolved Mysteries clip sets up very much a Halloween Kills style
Totally.
plot, where I forget the name of the character who survived. It was the last girl who survived the
Hardesty.
1978 Leatherface. That's right, Hardesty. And apparently, she has been after Leatherface for 40 years, like a weird Quint after Jaws, and
Or Laurie Strode.
or
Totally.
Laurie Strode, 100% Halloween. They basically were like, "Hey, we saw the Halloween trailer. Let's make our movie after that."
Not from the movie, just from the trailer.
Just from the trailer. And then we see when they get to the town, these Gen Zers get to the town, we see the mother who is still in a house. Or what? My question is, was that Leatherface's mother or his daughter? Because it made no sense.
She should have been
'Cause she
like
was old
98
and-
years old.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. When we talk about plot holes, that's it's like, okay, wait. So what happened to the family from 50 years ago? Like,
Yes.
there was like a whole family,
Well-
and I'm assuming they're all dead. But why is Leatherface still alive? Who is this woman? They tried to make it sound like he was an orphan who lived in the orphanage.
Well, can we go back a bit and
At
just
20?
talk briefly?
when his family died in the first one?
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Well,
John.
let's talk briefly about the franchise for a second, because I was looking up, like, how many of these Texas Chainsaws? Because, you get these, these Blumhouse and these Michael Bays that come in over the years, that get the rights, New Line has it, and then maybe another, and so the remakes sometimes are sequels to the originals, but sometimes they will retcon and steamroll over whatever the last one did, kind of like with Halloween. So I was going through, and I think that including this one, there are 4 official semi-sequels, or there were 2 official ones. There was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 in 86, 3 in 1990. And then you get into the 2000s and things get murky because they tend to be sort of like, kind of like it's been 30 years since
Do
the
you have
original.
all those titles, the
No.
2000
Well, they're
titles,
all
from
just
2000
Texas-
to now? Just read them off.
They're just Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then, so there was one in
Wasn't the one
2003.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning?
Yes, that one was
That
actually
was the Matthew McConaughey.
in
Right?
in 1994 it was Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Renee Zellweger, and McConaughey was one of the family members. And then in 2003, I think it was the first Michael Bay one.
All
where
right,
he was
all
kind of
right,
a rat.
all right.
And-
Let's cut off some faces and stick them on our heads.
That was the remake with, I think, Jessica Biel. And then there was
Right.
there was a prequel to that one that starts in like 1939. We see the origins of the family, and I had like Matt Bomer in it or something. And then there was another remake in 2013 that was supposed to be a direct sequel. And now this one, which isn't connected to that one, is considered a direct sequel. So they're kind of doing what, the Halloween series did. So I guess this connects to the 1974 one.
Yeah, so this is a direct sequel to the 1974 one because it's almost 50 years later. And I guess he ended up in an orphanage and living in this ghost town in Texas where a bunch of Gen Zers are going to buy it up without another plot hole, no business plan. They're like, we're going to open a restaurant here in the middle of nowhere?
No, I thought that their business plan, which I actually, so real talk, I actually was sort of into this concept because it started at a nice clip where it was like, okay, we got these brand new panel of victims, right? And potential victims. And they have this plan, which I'd never heard of before. This was something that I was like, could somebody actually do this? Could somebody buy a ghost town and then revamp it? With what kind of money do you need? I know if they're social media influencers, whatever, but they showed up specifically to, they bought the town or had bought a building in the town. That's the one where the orphanage, they bought the orphanage. And then they invited a bunch of people to come and, I guess, bid on the remaining properties in the little Main Street area. And they were going to turn them into, restaurants and art galleries and hipster
places.
Yeah. And I was like, that seems kind of cool.
And it should be pointed out that everybody first of all, they truck all of those potential investors or buyers in on a party bus. And it's like an old 1960s bus. I don't know if that was sort of to be creepy or if that's all they could afford. I don't know. They come from Austin.
They were in Bulgaria. They were shooting this movie.
Right.
Seriously.
Everybody on that bus, absolutely, I would believe, could buy and open a business on that empty street. I mean, they just looked so convincing, every one of them. Drinking their Red Bull and vodkas, partying it up later after, they did their auction.
I love the idea of the plan, but it feels like a plan that eats its own tail. If you open an art gallery, your only customers are the other people on Main Street. You don't have a suburban area or a city where other customers are going to come in.
They made a point that it was 7 hours away from Austin.
Yeah.
Because I thought, by the way, the lead girl and her sister is riding with the chef's partner and his fiance, and they're in a Tesla. So I'm thinking, that's a pretty easy setup. They're in Texas and they're in the middle of nowhere. They're going to run out of battery. There's no charger. Nope, they didn't use that at all. But
it was just a marker, a hipster marker.
But they did have a coal roller, a guy in a pickup with those aftermarket attachments to make your car pollute. Just kind of point out the big city, mice, country mice.
Oh my goodness. So before we I have a lot to say about the point of view. I have a lot to say about the perspective of this movie. Before we do that, I would love to kind of just, ask you guys if the vibe of this movie fit your expectation when it comes to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Did it hit the bullseye?
It is not. I don't think it quite did hit the idea of what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is to me, because it felt like once we got into it that it was another type of mass murderer monster movie. You could have put anyone in for Leatherface, whether it was Freddy or Kevin,
Michael Myers,
or Michael or Jason. I couldn't remember Michael or Jason.
Kevin was Michael Myers' cousin. Because like Frank Stallone and Don Swayze, he got his own little movies.
Now, I'm not a huge Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, but I feel like it comes down to it's kind of about a family of cannibals who are creepy. And this wasn't that. This was more like a guy with a chainsaw kills people and puts his mom's face on his face.
Yeah, they're the greatest hits. That was basically
it. The greatest hits.
It's the Cliff Notes version.
I think Stephanie, you hit it on the head. I'll answer the question just like Dave's. I'm not as familiar, but I do know the basics because it's kind of it's like Hollywood horror lore, as this family and the images of Leatherface. And you're right. Leatherface was almost like a perfunctory character because he was just a killer. And they tried to,
Yes.
and they didn't establish enough of that myth. Like, okay, so we've got this old survivor, but we don't see her. She's not part of the story until the very last act. So we have nothing really invested in her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like comes down to, is there a mystery to solve? No, he just
No.
starts killing at a point in the story and doesn't stop.
This was a couple of things about that. Is I absolutely agree about the woman. She is never a part of the mythology from the very beginning, like Laurie Strode is in Halloween. Laura Strode has become the hero of those movies through sequels and is like 100% a part of those movies. Here, Hardity, or whatever her name is,
Sally.
in the movie, the character. What's the character's
I
name?
think her name is Sally.
Sally Hardesty, yeah. And they were calling her
Hardesty.
Hardesty, because she was supposed to be badass.
Yeah, exactly.
For 15 minutes.
Yeah, and she just really seemed like a plot device where they're like, oh, I know, 50 years later, it's the last girl again. It's like, okay, Halloween did it.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I forget my other point, but I'm sure it was good.
It
And
was a
probably a little
fantastic
funny.
point.
Well, did you guys
Yeah.
feel that they were
Genius.
trying to shoehorn, like Stephanie brought up the words points of view, and I feel like they're trying to pit anti-gun people against pro-gun people and try to do it in ways where we're showing, trying to be fair to both sides so that we see that the younger sister is a school shooting survivor and she was like one of the only kids in the classroom who survived. So she's got that trauma and PTSD. And then she comes across this mechanic who is the sort of prototypical, he's got a gun and they even make a comment about his gun and his big gun and have you ever fired one? But you start to see that he's sympathetic once he finds out. So I feel like they're trying to say, we're going to show these different sides. And then we get into the areas which we can talk about where Leatherface's mom has a Confederate flag hanging outside her old abandoned
Orphanage.
What?
Yeah. So I guess we're going to get into it. If we're going to get into it, let's get into it. So I was looking forward to this movie. Once they, it opening titles, looks like it's going to be new and different. There's an interesting concept. It immediately launches into this very strange kind of point of view where the Gen Z chefs are immediately very vocal about what's his face and his gun. I mean, like talking shit, like he's like 2 feet away and you're like, what kind of a small dick loser needs a gun? And I was like, oh my God.
Let me raise my hand.
And he's like, whoa, there's feral hogs. I'm like, oh yeah, Texas. Yeah, okay. And I mean, no, seriously, they have like roving herds of feral hogs that will kill you and eat everything. I don't even know what's going on down there. So we have that, which is just like you said, shoehorned in. Like where you have like, okay, so these Gen Zers, and they're driving a Tesla, and then immediately they get stopped by the sheriffs and the sheriff department, and then the Dante, who's the only black character, is like, okay, everybody put your hands where they can see, and I was like, okay, so we're having a comment about police brutality and something very serious that's just sort of been thrown in there, like, okay, and then what's the next box to check? Oh, we have to talk about the Confederate flag. The next box to check. Oh, we have to talk about gentrifying, and it's like,
Yes.
they don't even, there is no form here. It's just, let's get as many buzzwords and as many emotional checkpoints into this new 21st century Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like, I don't even know what is the point here. We don't even know. These characters seem like they're walking billboards,
Yes.
like woke, quote unquote, which I resent, has been co-opted by the overculture and it has been bastardized. Like, that's not even what woke means, but whatever. Like taking those, signposts and making it like, what was the meeting? What was the meeting about this story?
Well, and they want to subvert it at every turn. So to the point you bring up, the sheriffs, when pull them over, here we go, and and you got the black guy who's going to get hassled, and ooh, they're actually kind of nice sheriffs. You know, they're a little protective. And the first thing they say is, oh, we know why you're here and we just don't want you exploiting our town. And then, you know, the chef Bonds in the back seat says, my grandmother's from the area. So they're trying to kind of take the cliches like, oh, asshole, racist sheriffs, kind of turn it on the head. Like there's a Confederate flag. Oh, no, crazy mom just wants it there because it reminds her of grandpa. I understand why your friend was offended. And he shouldn't use that kind of language. So they're trying to like sort of at every
called
turn.
him a Negro, and I was like, "Who is this for?" Like,
then, yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the big question. Who is this for? Because I was watching it, and I'm like, who am I supposed to not like? Am I supposed to not like these Gen Zers coming into this town? Because they were kind of pompous and dickish.
Yeah.
But again, and then they paint these Hicks as a complete backwater, but then with maybe a subtle layer of heart. Yeah.
And you're gonna need this gun at some point. So you know, all you anti-gun people, you're gonna be hiding behind our skirts at the end.
The one thing I thought that was kind of very interesting that they just throw away is this idea that there's a girl who's already been a last girl from a very relatable, realistic trauma, which is a school gun shooting. So you had this like base of a character, and then they did nothing with that.
Well, they did. They just did it in a very frustrating way, in a very insensitive, controversial way that I strongly disagree with, which was she didn't like guns because she'd literally been shot at in school, which, like you said, is a real thing that we have not solved, and it's serious.
Right.
And decide to make her like a gun-toting person at the end.
At the end, yeah, that's her character arc. Oh, I'm afraid of guns because they almost killed me. Now I can hold a gun and shoot someone.
Yeah, it did feel
I've
a little
grown
bit
as a
like
character.
Out of touch do you have to be?
Was this film financed by the NRA? And I say that because I felt like at every turn they want you to say you can make fun of this gun, this rifle, but you're probably not going to know how to use it, and you're going to wish that. And the person who does is going to get killed, so you better have paid attention. And then Stephanie's right. Then they turn it into like, but it's going to be the weapon of choice when you got to take on the bad guy. It actually doesn't even work. Because in these films, we know a gunshot is not going to kill the bad guy.
No, never. And then it's like suddenly like, I mean, I found that, and I don't throw this word around a lot, but I did find that to be pretty tone deaf and offensive. Like I was like, this isn't, the movie is called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then you're going to solve your problems with an, semi-automatic rifle. Okay.
Hey, Craptaculars, we'll be right back. And now, back to the show.
Can we make that a segue into some of the kills? Because kind of with these films, we always got to talk about them. And there was nothing clever. And that would have been the perfect opportunity for the lead characters
Dave disagrees.
Is to have like a really cool way to kill him at the end. Or, no. However, Dave, you disagree with?
Well, here's the thing on the kills is this is a horrific way of phrasing it, but I always judge a horror movie on how much I giggle during the kills. And I don't know what that says about me. Yeah. But the very first one is they're in the back of an ambulance. They're taking Leatherface's mom to the hospital. She dies. There's a cop who's like trying to stop Leatherface from
over-oxygenating his dead mom.
Yeah. And so Leatherface breaks his forearm off. I mean, it's just hanging from from
every
a little
bone,
bit of
every bone.
Exposed bone.
The ulnar, the radius.
Exposed bone. And then he takes that exposed bone and stabs the man in the heart with it. He is being stabbed in the heart with his own forearm bone. And even now you're laughing at it. It was like, oh, that's where I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Yeah. This is like what I kind of want.
And the blood is like squirting into the cab.
And the blood's like
hitting the girl, what's her face from Outlander and Downton Abbey and why she was in this movie, I don't know why.
There were a lot of British people. There were a lot of Irish people and a lot of European people. in this movie,
Bulgaria?
by the way. Yeah, because it was during COVID and they're the only ones who could.
I'm serious. Did they shoot this in Europe
Apparently,
and find
Bulgaria was free of COVID when they
and
shot
free
this.
of water because it was a drought? No, it was a dust bowl. It was shot somewhere.
It looked like I seriously thought it was Texas.
Yeah,
I
they
think
did
it
a good job
was,
of set
or-
dressing.
But in any
Yeah.
case,
It's like a little fake town.
all
yeah.
right. So on the
And then-
tally
and
of
then-
good deaths, I'll give Dave that one because even in
Okay,
his
and
retelling
another
made
good
me
one.
laugh.
This is two, and this one's a little sick. But Leatherface is on the bus with all the millennials, just sawing them in half like he has a hot electric
That is
knife.
that
and
is the
they're
set.
all butter.
Oh yeah, he's cutting the turkey at Thanksgiving.
Right. This is the centerpiece, the thing that I'm sure they were like, we're going to be remembered for this set piece.
Yes.
The bus massacre.
And he's just sawing all these people in half. And there's a guy running towards camera, or kind of Leatherface hits him in the back, crotch level, so the chainsaw goes through. So it's like he has this strap on of a chainsaw. And then Leatherface pushes the guy up against a girl. And it's very Seven. And he's chainsawing them both, so it looks like they have the sex scene.
Oh.
And just saying it really grosses me out.
It was gross.
But at the same time, kind of surprising in the moment. It was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. That's kind of ridiculous.
Well,
okay.
it's without context. Because I understand, okay, the guy getting his arm broken and stabbed with it, that worked for me because it was brutal and it was efficient.
Yes.
This didn't seem efficient. Like, it seemed like they were purposely trying to, like, look at this chainsaw dick. And then, and I was like, who is this for? Like, we don't know these
That's true.
characters. Like, we don't know.
And honestly, going back to who's this for, is this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's more of a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of joke. That's a
with appropriate setup, too.
Night of the Living Dead kind of joke. Well, tonally.
Yeah, I mean, because it
also.
would. Here's my pitch. My pitch is that we would have met these two characters. They would have been like, oh man, if only we could like get it, if only we could have been on a plane out here and we had a Mile High Club and like, oh yeah, baby, yeah, like just something like that to set up that they did want to have sex. And then the irony is that they are having this weird chainsaw intercourse. Yeah, and it's like
It brings up a bit of the question of character development, and there wasn't any. And other than the sister that had a backstory, you really didn't know anything about these characters. The co-chef and his fiance are kind of off, the first main people to get off. She gets off with the sheriffs, and then he gets off when he happens to go in the house. And okay, the thing that frustrates me is how nobody really is trying to explain anything in the moment at all. So for instance, what's his name? Dante, the co-chef, he's walking out like, first of all, he people lie on the floor evacuating 3 gallons of blood, but still can kind of function, including Dante. So he gets up after that, and he's limping off the street. An asshole turned later hero turned victim, the mechanic contractor comes out. He's like, "Hey, boy, talk to me." Oh, wow, something must be wrong. And he turns around, and like half his face is split open. And it was gruesome. And then the girl who was like, I don't know, was she like the realtor from the bank who kind of helped organize?
Yeah, she was the bank.
Yeah.
She comes out and she's like, so what's going like, ah? And so she sees that, and the contractor's like, get in the bus, get away from here. So she does. So she goes to the bus and she's like, kind of quietly shuts the door. What's wrong? Nothing. Let's just stay in here. No. Don't you want to say that your client's face
Dante's
is in half?
head is split open.
Yeah. Don't you want to say that? No. She's like, let's just stay in here.
What's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just keep the door shut.
Yeah, and so and then throughout, the only thing that connected was the lead character who looks like maybe from Arrested Development. She recognized through a paperwork issue that the old lady who she kicked out of the orphanage, Leatherface's mom, actually deserved to still be there because she had the deed, and that made her feel overwhelmingly guilty. So there was at least some explanation for like, oh, that guy's mad because of what I did to his mom. But nobody else in the movie has a moment to explain or to catch their breath to find out, well, what is going on here? Everybody's slaughtered. It's just a big giant meat grinder.
That does lead to my favorite moment where they're like, do we have the deed? And they don't have the deed. And they're like, let's go into the house and search it and see if we can find the deed. And I'm like, have you ever gone into someone's house to try and find a deed? I can't find the deed in my own fucking house.
Right.
Let's go into
nothing-
strangers.
I don't understand. Like, I was like, how could this, like you said, John, is paperwork error. Like, how could this be the inciting incident? Like,
As like Dave said, no business plan.
No business plan.
And for the record, I was counting the minutes, and I literally said out loud, we're an hour in, no chainsaw. Literally after I said that, he pulls the chainsaw out of the wall. The movie was listening to me. I'll give him that.
He was like, let me unearth my special chainsaw.
Oh, Mr. Ford, our chainsaw's been waiting for you. Oh.
Should we talk about that? Apparently the chainsaw was just walled up into the wall. Like, they threw it in and then threw in some dry board.
And it's been there since the Nixon administration.
With the gas in
or
it.
at least somewhat in Watergate.
Yeah, you leave those kind of tools out, they will seize up. You got to oil them. You got to take the chain off and clean it.
I would have loved to have him like open a lock on his closet door and like reveal this chainsaw that he's been like fetishizing over for 40 or 50 years.
It's in mint condition too.
It's in mint condition.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
It's
and he just
a fire.
Okay, and I think going back to the kills, because I do want to touch on those. So in the bus, the big Slaughterhouse 5 meat grinder, that should be the bumper sticker on it. Slaughterhouse.
Slaughter bus.
The clientele that are going to buy, they're all, under 30, kind of, a little bit of social networky type extras. And they're all pulling out their phones, which was in the trailer. So if you've seen the trailer, and they're like recording Leatherface. So I felt like the filmmakers wanted to have sort of their moments of humor, but it felt so out of place because there was nothing funny, nothing up until that point. Now all of a sudden we're going to do this sort of satirical moment where they all pull out their phones, and then you see the comments of the live stream of, wow, that looks so fake. That looks cool. Can I go there? Totally fake. And I'm like, well, that's kind of funny. It actually probably makes sense in a Scream movie more than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did kind of giggle a little at that, but I couldn't shake the feeling of how superficial it was. Like, it's a very superficial understanding of what that culture is about. It's almost like, I dare say, even though I did not live during this time, but from what I understand from watching
the early
shows
2000s?
movies, no. When in the 60s, when the hippies were like a thing and everybody was like, oh, the hippies, and it's like, oh, peace, man, and like they do Dragnet and they'd be like, you're hepped up on goofballs. And he's like, whatever, man. You just don't understand me, man. Because it's a very shallow way to approach the differences in these cultures. And I think that this is a repeat of that. And I want to say, like, in the bus scene, they had, like you said, like that gag about people trying to live stream it being like, you're canceled, and it's like, oh my God, why? Yeah. Why are you doing this? Who asked for this?
Was this
like,
written by
like,
guys who are like 50 trying to figure out what the vernacular is of people in their 20s?
Well, yeah.
There's also, first of all, I want to say, Stephanie, if there is a contest for analogies that perfectly exemplify something, you just won it. Because that's a great analogy. And stands up perfectly.
Yeah. It feels like the original, from what I remember about the original that came out in 74, like the idea behind it was sort of like coming to terms with that with that cultural shift that had happened in America. Like the fact that they pick up a somewhat, hippie-like hitchhiker who turns out to be a psycho and is from the family that's a bunch of cannibals, and it's like preying on that idea of like, this is sort of Manson family is like, like this is sort of a cult of people who, are murderous and, living on the fringes of society, sort of like they were. And there was a commentary about that, but it was so subtle, I mean, that it is not like this where they literally have, people live streaming getting killed by the chainsaw wielding maniac. And then they're going like, oh my God, this is so not cool, man. And it's like, what?
Well, I also think that, this is a kindred spirit to that last Halloween movie where they can't just make a horror movie. They've got to try to infuse it with some level of commentary. I don't know if that's to sort of an attempt to elevate the material or they feel like they kind of need to because that's what people want to watch. But, it's not enough to just have a movie with a killer and we got to see who survives at the end. They've got to jam-pack it with all of this stuff. And there was
Social
a little bit
commentary.
of like... And when I think of Texas Chainsaw, I think of it's really about like you don't want to stop in a small town. And that's kind of a horror trope, kind of like, this big city person, and it could be as in a serious in a movie like Deliverance, or it could be in a horror film or a comedy, where the big city person goes to the small town, either learns a lesson or barely gets out alive. And in this one, I felt like there was a little bit of let's punish the big city people, particularly the woke anti-gun crowd. And, I guess we can give away the ending, but, you think that people are going to get away, and they do we want to talk about the ending? Because
I thought the ending was shit.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! If we're gonna talk about the ending, if you haven't watched the movie yet, I don't know why you're listening to this, but
yes.
Just skip.
Big shocker here. At the end, there's a come out of nowhere death. That's it. And what happens is the two sisters get away. They jump into the Tesla, and I knew things were going to go sideways because they walk out into the sunlight. The big ending was in a theater or something. They walk out into the sunlight, and they're like, "Oh, we survived." And the younger sister's like, "You know what? I am going to move to this town with you." And the older sister's like, "I know my leg has a steel pole in it, and I just got the shit beaten out of me, but you're funny." And they're like, "Let's auto drive back to Austin."
Yeah, can you even auto drive now? Can you do that? Or is this film set in 2029?
The Tesla starts going off, and all of a sudden Leatherface appears at the side window, punches it out, pulls out the older sister, and I loved this. As the Tesla drives the other girl away, she gets up out of the sunroof, is like, "No!" And Leatherface takes the chainsaw and decapitates the sister while holding her head, and holds the head up, and then he does a little jig, literally. He does a little river dance with the chainsaw.
As you do.
The end.
Well, it's a marvelous night for decapitation. I thought that was a dream because the younger sister popping out of the sunroof was clearly green screened, if you notice.
Yes.
So I thought she's going to pop up. It's sort of like the ending of Friday the 13th. And now she's got a new PTSD. And I thought that was going to be but no, it's just literally they're saying not only did he survive, setting you all up for a sequel, but he's really excited and happy, and he's ready to dance into the next movie.
This was like that. Okay, so the final image of him swirling around now is from there were like a couple of visual callbacks to the original movie, where the first one was when he hits Dante. Like there's like that kitchen door swinging back and forth. In the original, it was just a sliding door that was going back and forth between like the hallway and whatever like tanning booth he had for. I guess killing people and hanging them up by hooks. That scene was like he just comes out with the hammer and hits that guy. In the 70s movie, he hits the guy. The guy goes down, starts shaking and shuddering because he's dying. And then Leatherface picks him up and slams the door again or something like that. And I was like, okay, so the Dante kill is an echo of that because it's taking place in another room. We're looking down a hallway, seeing it happen. And then he falls on the floor shuddering because he's losing blood. So there was a callback to that. And then the scene when he's at the very end, when Leatherface is swinging the chainsaw around and dancing, that was from the original too. So it's like, all right, guys.
That way it's the same Leatherface.
And
this isn't a guy who just picked up the moniker of Leatherface. He was like
him. You can tell by the dancing.
Original.
And let's go back to our rapid recap. The 60-year-old Leatherface, because I'm very impressed with Michael Myers and now Leatherface. These guys who are of advancing age.
60 is the new 30.
It's got to be. And what does he do with his mother? After she's she dies and they're in the van. Sorry, we're going way back, but does he cut her face off and make? That's the Leatherface he wears?
Yeah. He cuts off his mom's face.
It still keeps the family with him. But the chainsaw, literally, it will cut through people, but not necessarily kill them. So, like, the Sally character, he's lifting her off the ground, and she's what? And she's like 70-something? And the chainsaw's
70, and if she weighs 75 pounds, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, so literally he is disemboweling her, throws her 20 feet against a brick wall, and then she's still got enough gumption to, take a few shots at him about 5-10 minutes later.
With her shotgun.
And there was lots of limbs getting broken. The redneck contractor gets his ankle busted. A lot of, nobody in Texas apparently drinks enough calcium.
There's, people are just sticks of butter in this movie.
Yeah, and like he throws his chainsaw and spins it across the floor at the younger sister. Nothing really happens. Like, isn't that supposed to like cut something off? The level of injury was weird. He hurls what is it, like a sledgehammer into the lead character, and that would be some severe damage.
Yeah, that's right. He like hit. I actually laughed during that
It's-
part
it
because
very-
like she's standing on the stairs and he's there, and then he just throws the sledgehammer at her, and she goes.
I get that characters in horror movies, their adrenaline kicks in and they can Bruce Banner their way through anything, even if they've got, Laurie Strode first did that. She hurt her leg and she can. But I was getting confused as to the level of gore. Yeah, like the spike in the leg. Like, just make it consistent so I know, like, oh, they're dealing with that type of injury or that type of limb.
Yeah, yeah. Did you guys like the upside down jaws? Like where the
oh my
chainsaw
god,
going through the
really
floor?
loved.
You did?
Yeah, it's after. First of all, I wanted to say real quick about that scene where she's going down the stairs and he hits her with the hammer. I liked. There was a lot of moments where the characters tried to do something smarter than we normally see. It's not like I'm just gonna run blindly through the house.
Right.
It's like
True.
I'm gonna try. I know these stairs squeak, so I'm gonna try and get around that.
Yeah.
And she almost gets away, but doesn't. He hits her with the hammer, and she goes through the floor. And because the house is made of butter as well,
Well, termites.
and it lands
Carpenter
in the
ants.
sub. Is it
house
called
is
sub?
made of
Not
termites.
subflooring, but it's under the house.
Yeah, it's like the crawl space under the.
Yeah, the crawl space under the house, and she's trying to crawl to this window that she can get out access panel, and the chainsaw comes down and chases her like a fin of a shark. I thought that was.
Oh, and not
I
just
liked
chases her,
that.
but at the end, when you think it's gonna like kill her, it actually cuts through the main sewage line and raw
that's right.
sewage, Leatherface feces and urine all falls on her. She's like covered in it. She runs out into the rain. Not 30 seconds later, she's on the bus. It's all washed off, and the other sister's hugging her. Like, I'm sorry, she would get on that bus, and everybody would have went, whoa.
She just Andy Dufresne'd it. She walked through a mile of shit and came out clean on the
Being
other
on
side.
the other side. I'd like to think the last thing that went through Leatherface's mind, other than that bullet. Wait, so he got shot. He Michael Myers did. He got shot at least 2 or 3 times, maybe more.
Right. And got a chainsaw to the chin. Like, I mean, like she
Yes,
did this whole like,
that's right.
"Rah!" and like kick, did like a slice up in the air and sliced through his torso and into his face, and he
It was
fell.
like a Mortal Kombat final kill.
Right.
Finish him.
Finish him.
So they're obviously going to try to do a sequel. Nobody like Netflix is going to produce a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel or reboot unless they can, make more, right?
I don't know. Sometimes I think Netflix is like, what do we have the window on? Well, next year we have a lot Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, let's make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and maybe people will watch all 7
Right.
of them.
Yeah, it's like, what do we have the rights to, or what?
Yeah. Should we rate this thing?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do that. Okay, so we have a 3-tiered rating system here. The top tier is Cinema Craptaculus, in which we're going to go with a rip-roaring good time. This is a must-watch. The second tier is pretty good on an afternoon. Craptaculus, or Saw It.
Da, da, da.
I love it. I love it. This is my favorite, though. Utter Crap, which speaks to itself. Avoid this movie, or Buzzkill.
Someone deserves an award for these titles.
Me.
Either that or a
Stephanie
couple of
does.
rim
I
shots.
vote.
Each one makes me. I like a rip-roaring good time. They're good. I like.
That's a genius at 3 a.m.
I think I like these ratings more than the movie. But what did you all think?
Oh man, I'm mixed. Like, I'm kind of like in between Saw It and Buzzkill, because there were so many elements that just upset me. Like, that made me feel like, oh, you just didn't care about what you were doing. Like, you were trying to prove something about, again, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think, John, you were saying this earlier, to your point, like, sometimes a movie can just be a movie and it doesn't have to be speaking to society in any way. Like, can we just, why does everything have to mean something? Like,
And if you're going to do
this
that,
movie-
do it well.
Yeah, like, this movie doesn't have anything to say about Gen Z that I haven't already seen or, had some idiot tweet about, like, so it's like, what? And the kills were good, so that's why I think, okay, saw it. They were a couple of good kills, but there's also those moments where like you're just like, what? Like the chainsaw crotch, and then also the bus driver just getting off the bus and getting decapitated.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I was like, wait, who is this guy? Why is he sleeping?
Can I just say
all
real
the
quick?
time?
By the way, when he gets off the bus, you're expecting. It was literally. Like it was the most efficient beheading, the least amount of gas used for that chainsaw.
But why did he get off the bus? Like it just seemed like he was like, oh no, the bus is, and everyone was like, please don't stop, and he just opens the door and walks off.
Runs out.
He doesn't say anything.
That's a dereliction
like
of
they weren't
duty.
going to pay him. They weren't going to pay him for dialogue, so they were like, maybe he was from Bulgaria.
Yeah, maybe he had a bad accent.
Okay, so I'm between Saw It and Buzzkill. I'm like right in the middle there.
So you saw Buzzkill.
Well, I'm going to go with Buzzkill just because I think that the things we didn't like about Halloween Kills kind of overlaps in this. But one thing I will give Halloween Kills credit is there was a heavy amount of love for the material, meaning that what they had done is taken the franchise and said, we're going to, with the first Halloween in 2017, and we're 18, and we're going to really love it. And it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back, bring originals. And Halloween has a bigger following. It's just a bigger, more popular, more socially, accepted film. Texas Chainsaw is a little on the fringes. But having said that, I don't feel the love for the material. I don't think they really thought things through. To Stephanie's big point about it not being a family, you got the mom, but she was dispatched and out of the picture. And so you're right, Dave said it. It could have just been any killer. So for me, it's like the only thing that made it a Leatherface movie, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, was the chainsaw and the face of leather or skin. Other than that, it was a pedestrian kill movie with all of the repellent sort of social awkwardness. And I think if you like a lot of blood and you like to see slaughter, then this would be a Saw It. But if you want like a good horror movie that sort of honors the franchise, utter crap.
I am, you know what? I'm right in the middle. I'm going to go Saw It. There's a part of me that's very Kylo Ren, where it's like, kill the past, just drop it. Like, we don't need another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. But there were aspects of this movie that I did admire. I thought some of the cinematography was very beautiful. Some of the images that they captured. There's this great image where the bus is going down the street and the camera is like behind the buildings following it, and it reveals the silhouette of Leatherface holding the chainsaw. There was images like that I thought were really fun. I also really liked some of the kills. I did enjoy them, and there was a quiet kind of tense moments, like when the blonde fiance was in the crashed ambulance and was trying to climb out and was trying to be quiet, and there was just moments where I was like in the moment. And a lot of times with these horror movies, I'm not really in the moment. I'm just like, okay, get on with it. She's gonna die. Let's get to it. But there's also all those other things that I agree with. It was just kind of sloppy. It felt like a 2-act movie. It was like, here's a setup, and now we're going to kill people. And you were never really involved with the characters. But I do still think it was kind of fun to watch on an afternoon. So I'm going to go Saw It.
Fair. I will be a very happy woman indeed if I never have to watch another legacy horror movie remake that speaks to America today. I don't give a shit.
Dave, should we tell her that we're doing the new Scream movie for our next Cinema Craptaculus?
We're doing the new Scream movie. I do want to say, though, aren't you a little surprised they didn't make a COVID mask joke at some point?
Yeah.
Because he takes someone else's face and wears it as a mask.
Yeah.
I mean, just be,
Is this an N95?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'd be awesome if he sawed off the face of one of the Gen Zers who is wearing a mask, so he puts it on, and then he has the mask.
Has a mask
so
on
it's
the
like
mask on the mask.
Or if
double
or if
layer?
he just took the half of Mom's face and it just goes from his nose down.
Yeah, Yes.
Well,
No, they missed an opportunity for when the 4 kids pull up to the gas pump and they make the dick gun joke. They should have all been immediately putting on their masks when they see another person. And then they cut to the guy and he's like, ugh.
Yeah.
That would have been one more
out in
commentary.
Texas. Well, thanks for joining us on this Cinema Craptaculus journey. This is Dave, and ever present with me are
Stephanie.
And John.
And remember, a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one. It's just a lot easier to make fun of. Bum, ba, bum, bum. Chainsaw.
I know. Is there we should go back to singing songs out. Is there a chainsaw song?
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema Craptaculus. If you'd like to hear all our other episodes, including our other shows like B-Sides, The Expanded Universe, and Terror Tunnel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Go to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, rate us. Give us a good review, we hope. It helps get the Craptaculus word out. And be sure to follow us on social media, at Craptaculus on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook, and you can find more content at cinemacraptaculus.com.